Ladies and gentlemen, this is our last video probably as far as the benzene, intro to benzene, nomenclature of benzene, and reactions of benzene are concerned. But it's not yet our final one in the benzene field. So I left you off with this question. And it said, example, what are two ways to make each compound? A and B. Okay. So we're going to have to come up with two different ways to make the compounds that we see on the screen based on the benzene reactions that we've just learned about. And they're probably going to focus on the Friedel-Crafts. I mean, that was the last thing that we talked about, right? Were the Friedel-Crafts acylations and Friedel-Crafts alkylations. So the product that they want me to end up with is a benzene ring. And off of this benzene ring, this is a secondary carbon. And off of that is a methyl group, and then a CH2, a CH2, and a CH3. So I want to know, what do we use in order to get that particular compound? Well, this is going to be pretty easy because I know that if I use benzene, right, and I react this, well, maybe I could simply use this CH, CH3, CH2, CH2, CH3. That's the piece that I want on, right? So why not just use a chlorine there? And AlCl3, this sucker, in order for that piece to go on. So AlCl3 will grab the chlorine, boink, off it goes. Leaves me with that secondary carbon. It doesn't shift because next door it's still secondary. It doesn't have a reason to move. And that is the carbocation piece that will get attached and substituted for a hydrogen on the benzene ring. And folks, there we go. That's all that we really need to do as far as our first option. Now, what about the second option? It's as easy. It's as easy. So here is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, so CH3, CH2, 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 CH2. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll put a chlorine after this. And I'll still add AlCl3 to it because one of the things that we knew is that these types of alkyl halides will rearrange because we're forming a full carbocation. So even though I've picked a straight chain 5-membered carbon here, when this chlorine goes ploop, off it goes, we form a carbocation that will then shift because that's a secondary spot. The carbocation shifts no matter what. It's a 1,2 hydride shift, and we end up getting the molecule that we're after. And that will revert to the same product that option number 1 did. So here are two different ways to make that compound. Now, are there different ways to make that compound? The answer is yes. There's plenty of different ways to make that compound using a benzene in the beginning. But folks, this is just the beginning. That's all that we're doing. And these are the first two things that kind of came to mind because we just got out of the Friedel-Crafts alkylation and the Friedel-Crafts acylation. All right, now for part B. Part B is a similar product. It is a benzene ring. And off of this ring is a 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon, 5 carbon in total. So 5 carbons all in a straight chain. Now the problem here is that as before, if I added benzene and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with a chlorine after it and said, I'm going to AlCl3 this, well, that chlorine goes bloop, off it goes. That does form a carbocation, but that carbocation is going to shift. And this becomes the site of attachment, which is not a straight chain attachment. This is a carbon with a methyl that points down and 3 other carbons that will go off right-handed. That is not what we want. So this is not going to work for us. We will not be able to go through Friedel-Crafts alkylation in order to get this done. There is an option, though. We've talked about this option, and that option is a carbon with a double bond O and a chlorine out here. the acyl halide version. Because if I could take this acyl halide, there's my first carbon. So off of this is my second, my third, my fourth, and my fifth. If I do this, then I will get the benzene ring with my carbonyl. There we go. There's our first carbon, because that AlCl3 is going to look at this and go bloop, off it goes. And in this case, we probably need some water, right? So this is my first carbon, second carbon, third carbon, fourth carbon, fifth carbon. But I need to get rid of the double bond O. So what I'll do instead is I'll do H2 and palladium. And that will destroy that carbon double bond O. That ensures that I get this straight chain carbon. And folks, that's really what we're after here. We're after that straight chain carbon. All right, what's another way that we could do this? It asks for 2. Well, and honestly, to get the straight chain carbons, we really said this was the only way that we could do it using Friedel-Crafts. But then we went back and we started pulling organometallic reactions out, right? So let's do one of those. Right? We just need a second one, so let's see what we can come up with. So here's my benzene. And let's say that I'm going to add Br2 with FeBr3. Look at that. There's my bromination of a benzene. Well, we know what that's going to do. It's going to create a benzene with a bromo group. And this is good news because now I can use that molecule in many of the organometallics that we talked about, and I can substitute that bromo group, not a hydrogen, but a bromo group, for a different type of alkyl group. So there were tons of different choices. I'm just going to use a Gilman's reagent here. So CH3, CH2, 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 right? And that was in parentheses with the 2 after it. And then CuLi. There's my copper and my lithium together as an organometallic. We called this the Gilman, and I know from that organic metallic section that that bromo goes away, bye-bye, and then in comes the R group. And that R group is going to be that straight chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, folks, there's another way that we can basically get that same product just like before. You want a third way? Go back and take a look at the Suzuki. We did that example too. We pulled it back and we said, hey, look at this. You know, we can use the Gilman with this copper and lithium, but we can also use the boron containing group with those oxygens on the boron and the alkyl group on that boron, and that works just as well. So again, organometallics, folks, it's not out of the question. This is a foundational class, and we are building the foundation from bottom up, and now these are the walls of our home. So as we get more and more into this material, deeper and deeper into the material, all of these reactions are going to be regarded as fair game. Those alkene reactions, bring them on. Alkyne reactions, bring them on. The alcohol reactions, the substitution reactions, the elimination reactions. Folks, all of these are fair game the longer we go in the semester. So here's one of those examples where we are digging out from the past and we are bringing that into the future and into the present. So this is how I'm going to end the lecture series. So this is our introduction to aromaticity and reactions of benzenes. 5 reactions of benzene: halogenation, nitration, sulfonation, Friedel-Crafts alkylation, Friedel-Crafts acylation, with a little bit of scatterbouts in that mix that we are going and pulling back from a different lecture module. Again, all of those are fair game. So you now know the basics of how to name them. You now know the basics of the reactivity. But folks, in the next lecture module, we're going to push it forward. We're going to go to the next level, to the next extreme, and we're going to be bringing benzene back. But this time, they're going to be substituted benzenes, and we handle those a little bit differently. So you'll see a nomenclature section with those again. You'll see reactions with those again, and a little bit different kind of perspective of the benzene field. So here you go. Here's the lecture. It's now over. Walk away knowing that you're very comfortable, I hope, with benzene and aromaticity. And then when you come back in the next lecture module, this is where we'll pick up and we'll keep trekking on and we'll flesh out the world of benzene even more so. So probably one of my shortest videos that you've ever received from me. Look at that, 10 minutes in the running, and we are done. So again, you know how to get a hold of me. You know how to contact me with any questions that you might have. I'm here for you. I'll answer those questions. That's what I get paid to do. So don't feel bad if you've got those questions at hand.